she did it again. Another headline, another coincidence, but this time it hit differently because this wasn't just a random Paris getaway. This was choreographed chaos. Every camera angle, every stop, every moment leading up to that drive, right past the tunnel where Princess Diana lost her life. And people noticed. Fast, within hours. Social media was on fire. Royal reporters calling it ghoulish, fans calling it disrespectful, and insiders whispering that Meghan Markle just crossed a line even her PR team couldn't spin. But what if I told you this wasn't a mistake at all? That it was a calculated move? A headline bait stunt designed to resurrect Diana's ghost and keep Meghan at the center of the story. Because behind the glitz of Paris Fashion Week, something darker was playing out. A moment so loaded with symbolism. It sent chills through even her most loyal supporters. And here's where it gets truly eerie. That entire route, that outfit, that look, it wasn't just fashion. It was a message. One meant for Harry, and one meant for the world. By the end of this video, you'll see why this Paris plot might be the single most shocking, manipulative, and downright haunting move Meghan's ever made, and why it could be the thing that finally pushes Prince Harry to his breaking point. Because this wasn't just Paris. It was Diana's ghost, repackaged and sold back to the public. So let's start at the moment that made the internet stop and ask the question everyone's too afraid to say out loud: why did Meghan Markle retrace Diana's final route? It started with a clip, just 40 seconds long, a grainy video filmed from across the street showing a black SUV cruising down a narrow Parisian road. But the second people realized where that car was headed, the internet lost its mind, because this wasn't just any road. This was Pont de l'Alma Tunnel, the exact spot where Princess Diana's life ended 27 years ago. And inside that car was Meghan Markle. Yeah, the symbolism wasn't subtle. At first, fans thought it had to be a coincidence. Maybe she was just passing through. But then more footage surfaced. Angles showing her team filming from multiple cars, even a drone capturing the skyline as her car approached that tunnel. That's when the tone changed. Commentators began calling it disaster tourism. Others called it PR necromancy. The outrage came fast, and it came from both sides. Royal loyalists, Meghan fans, even neutral outlets couldn't believe what they were seeing. Because no matter how you slice it, that drive wasn't innocent. She knew where she was. She knew what that road meant. This wasn't a private trip. It was a performance. And the message behind it was loud. I am the new Diana. Social media blew up. Hashtags like NAR, Diana Tunnel, our Meghan in Paris, and History Repeats were trending worldwide within hours. Some fans defended her, saying it was a tribute. Others accused her of exploiting a tragedy for attention. And then came the weirdest part, the timing. Because Meghan's Paris appearance wasn't linked to any royal event, charity visit, or official campaign. It was Fashion Week, her first high-profile public outing in months, so people started asking, why mix couture with a crash site? Why film a drive through one of the most painful symbols in royal history? It didn't make sense, unless it was planned that way. Reports claimed the convoy wasn't random, that she had requested a specific route through Paris to honor Diana's memory. But insiders quickly called that nonsense, saying no one in the royal circle would ever approve something that tone-deaf, and that's when the theories started spiraling. Was this Meghan's attempt to reclaim Diana's legacy? To remind people she, too, was hunted by paparazzi? Or was it something darker? A publicity stunt so twisted it turned personal grief into global branding? Because that's what this felt like. A rebranding moment disguised as nostalgia. One designed to pull every emotional string Harry had left, and whether you loved her or hated her, you could feel it. This wasn't just about fashion, fame, or Paris. It was about control. Control over the narrative, control over Harry, and control over how the world sees her story. But what she didn't expect was how fast the backlash would spread, or how even her loyal followers would start asking if she'd gone too far. Because what came next turned the Paris trip from a cringe-worthy PR move into something that felt almost psychological. And that's where the real story begins, with the tunnel, the ghost of Diana, and the one thing Meghan swore she'd never repeat. Let's be clear, this wasn't just any Paris road. The Pont de l'Alma Tunnel isn't some random landmark tourists stumble across. It's sacred, almost cursed ground, the place where the world stopped breathing on August 31st, 1997. It's where Princess Diana, chased by paparazzi, lost her life in a crash that shook the monarchy to its core. And for over 2 decades, that tunnel has stood as a silent reminder of obsession, of grief, of what happens when fame goes too far. So when Meghan Markle's convoy took that same route, cameras rolling, lights flashing, people didn't see coincidence. They saw recreation. Because if you know anything about Meghan, it's that nothing is ever random. Every photo, every outfit, every word she says in public, it's part of a story. Her story. The one she's been building since the moment she stepped into the royal spotlight. And this was the ultimate callback. The scene that launched Diana into eternal myth. Only this time, it wasn't tragedy. It was marketing. Think about it. The car, the cameras, the symbolic route. Even the lighting mirrored that infamous night. Dark tunnel, bright flashes, silent glances. People who lived through Diana's death said it felt almost haunting, like watching history loop. This time in high definition, and that's exactly why the internet went nuclear. Because the symbolism wasn't just eerie, it was provocative. By driving through that tunnel, Meghan wasn't paying tribute. She was challenging the crown. It's as if she was saying, "You silenced her. You won't silence me." But here's the thing. Diana didn't choose that drive. She didn't stage that moment. It happened to her, so when Meghan repeated it, intentionally or not, people couldn't help but see it as provocation, not homage. Like she was daring the public to compare her suffering to Diana's. And to some fans, that's exactly what she's wanted all along. To be the new Diana, not by blood, but by narrative. The misunderstood outsider, the media victim, the woman who walked away from the palace but never from the spotlight. But there's a dark side to that. Comparison. Because Diana wasn't just adored. She was destroyed by the very attention that made her iconic. And Meghan knows that, which raises one very uncomfortable question. If she's truly retracing Diana's steps, how far is she willing to go? Rumors suggest she's obsessed with Diana's old interviews, her photos, even her letters. She's reportedly studied how Diana moved, how she spoke, even how she played to the camera, mirroring the soft smiles, the tilted head, the sad eyes look. It's the kind of mimicry that feels deliberate, like a royal ghost story told through modern PR. But this isn't just eerie symbolism, it's psychological warfare. Because for Prince Harry, that tunnel isn't an aesthetic. It's trauma. And the moment Meghan's car drove through it, she wasn't just chasing a photo op, she was pulling at the deepest wound in Harry's entire life. That's when people started asking, is this still love? Or is this manipulation? Because what happened next made even Meghan's critics go silent for a second. She didn't stop at Diana's tunnel. She built an entire Paris experience around it. A fashion show, a PR blitz, a photographic rebrand, all orbiting the tragedy that defined Harry's childhood. And once you see that pattern, the Diana parallels, the emotional triggers, you can't unsee it. Because this wasn't a one-time stunt. This was part of a much bigger game plan, and that game plan, it's built on one thing, Harry's grief. You can feel it in the room, that strategic tension. The lights, the solemn tone, the perfectly timed camera pans to Harry's face as he speaks about mental health and loss. It's emotional, it's moving, and it's incredibly on brand. Let's be honest, the one story that has kept Harry relevant for nearly a decade is the tragedy that defined his youth, losing Princess Diana. And now, every time Harry speaks publicly, whether it's about therapy, trauma, or family estrangement, that same narrative is polished, repackaged, and presented to the world like a royal relic with a new emotional ribbon. But here's where things get dicey, because critics, including some inside the UK press, are saying that Harry's pain is no longer just personal, it's PR material. You see, after Spare dropped, Harry's brand became the wounded prince turned truth teller. And that image sold millions of books, fueled documentaries, and created this whole Prince versus Palace storyline that Netflix and Spotify cashed in on hard. But when Harry and Meghan's Hollywood deal started drying up, that emotional currency, his grief, became even more valuable. Cue the gala speech. Cue the Paris tunnel footage. Cue the emotionally charged tribute to Diana. Every beat of it was designed to reignite empathy, to make the public remember that, at the end of the day, Harry's not the rebel prince. He's the boy who never got over losing his mom. But the question hanging in the air is this: where's the line between healing and marketing Because if you zoom out, it looks like Meghan and the PR team know exactly what they're doing. The speech wasn't just heartfelt, it was perfectly timed with the couple's new docu-series pitch on mental health. And the choice of Paris? It wasn't coincidence. It was symbolic targeting. They know people still link that tunnel to tragedy. They know the British media will go ballistic. And they know that kind of controversy sells. So while fans are reposting Harry's emotional quotes with heart emojis, the industry's whispering something colder. That grief has become part of the Sussex business model. It's painful. It's brilliant. It's manipulative. And it works. Because whether you love them or can't stand them, you watched that clip. You felt something. And that's exactly what they wanted. Let's not pretend Meghan Markle does anything by accident. From her wardrobe to her facial expressions, every move, every angle, every frame is calibrated. And Paris? Oh, that was her Super Bowl of subtle comebacks. Let's start with the look. That immaculate off-shoulder white gown, modern, minimalist, yet screaming royal elegance. It wasn't a red carpet moment, it was a reset. A message to the world that Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, still knows how to play the royal optics game better than the royals themselves. She's no longer fighting the crown, she's mirroring it. Notice how she stood beside Harry? Not behind him, not overshadowing him. Perfectly balanced, equal parts supportive wife and Hollywood power figure. She let him take the emotional spotlight while she anchored the visual narrative. That's old school royal playbook, the quiet strength beside the wounded prince. But there's more. The camera pans caught her at precise moments. Soft smiles when Harry spoke about his mother. A gentle hand touch as he grew emotional. That slight nod of empathy when the crowd clapped. Every movement told a story. I'm the woman who heals him. You can almost hear the PR pitch. She's not the villain. She's the reason he found peace. And it worked. Within hours, headlines shifted from Meghan's revenge wardrobe to Meghan's poised return. Tabloids that spent years tearing her apart suddenly ran pieces calling her graceful, measured, redefined. Even British commentators, who usually can't stand her, admitted she looked royal. But don't be fooled. This wasn't just about looking good. It was about control. For months, Meghan's been ghosting the press. No interviews, no podcast revival, no Netflix teasers, radio silence. And then suddenly, boom, she reappears in Paris, wrapped in symbolism, standing beside Harry like a living reminder that their story isn't over. And the timing? Impeccable. Just as the Windsors are struggling with public fatigue, scandals, health rumors, William's PR struggles, Meghan steps back into the frame looking like stability personified. It's a power play disguised as grace, because here's the thing. Meghan doesn't need to be in the royal family to play the royal game. She's rewriting the optics from outside the palace walls, building her own version of monarchy, one red carpet at a time. Some call it manipulation. Others call it mastery. Either way, it's working. Meghan Markle is no longer asking for approval. She's commanding attention, on her terms, with royal-level precision and Hollywood execution. And if this Paris appearance was any sign, the Duchess isn't just back. She's reclaiming the narrative. All right, let's get one thing straight. The Sussex comeback? It's not spontaneous. It's strategic warfare. And the battlefield isn't Kensington Palace anymore. It's public perception. Over the past 6 months, Harry and Meghan have gone dark. Intentionally. No endless interviews, no tell-all podcasts, no overexposed Netflix shots of chickens and garden benches. That silence, that was their reset period. A rebrand incubation. And now, what we're seeing, this sleek Paris rollout, this emotionally charged gala, it's the debut of Sussex 2.0. Softer, smarter, and surgically PR engineered. Let's talk about the machine behind it. After the Spotify breakup and that brutal grifter's comment from a company exec, Meghan's team quietly shifted gears. Gone are the Hollywood publicists chasing glamour magazine covers. Enter the crisis comms pros, the ones who handle billionaires, fallen CEOs, and politicians in image rehab. The Sussexes basically built a stealth PR unit designed to reframe their story without looking like they're trying to. You can already see the fingerprints. Their messaging has pivoted from royal rebels to humanitarian entrepreneurs. The goal? To distance themselves from the drama while still using it as emotional leverage. Look at the pattern. Harry's speeches now lean into global compassion and trauma healing, not royal trauma. Meghan's appearances are pared down. Fewer glam shots, more polished minimalism. Substance over spectacle. Even their social accounts, the new branding rollout, use muted colors, crisp typography, charity-forward messaging. Gone is the glitzy California dream. In its place, global responsibility, reform, empathy. It's not a coincidence. It's textbook rebranding after a reputation crash. And guess who's behind it? Industry insiders are whispering about the Sussexes hiring a hybrid PR structure, part Hollywood, part NGO strategy. Meaning they're trying to merge celebrity influence with philanthropic legitimacy. Think, George and Amal Clooney levels of credibility. Not Kardashian-level chaos, but here's the kicker. Every emotional beat, every visual element ties back to one central objective. Turn public empathy into brand equity. They're no longer selling drama. They're selling healing. They're not attacking the institution anymore. They're positioning themselves as the evolution of it. That's why the Paris event mattered so much. It wasn't just a gala. It was a live test of the new brand. Could they reappear on a global stage without triggering backlash? Could they look royal without being royal? Could they reclaim sympathy without reopening old wounds? And based on the data, it worked. Social media sentiment flipped in less than 48 hours. Negative coverage dropped. Engagements tripled. Even outlets that previously roasted them started using words like mature, graceful, redefined. That's not luck. That's calculated image laundering, done by experts who understand that in the attention economy, redemption isn't about truth. It's about timing and tone. The Sussexes didn't just show up in Paris. They launched a new era of controlled authenticity, emotion with a filter, honesty with a script. And if this is their first act, Act 2 might just be their most profitable one yet. Now here's where things start to get really interesting, because behind every glossy rebrand, there's always someone footing the bill. And in Meghan and Harry's case, the money trail is like a spider web, glittery, tangled, and full of familiar Hollywood fingerprints. Let's start with what's visible. After the Spotify fallout, the Sussexes' public ventures took a nosedive. Netflix was cooling off. Archwell was looking thin, and insiders whispered that their massive Montecito estate was becoming more of a financial burden than a bragging right. So, how do you suddenly pull off a luxury Paris appearance, new team hires, and a polished PR offensive without visible revenue? You don't. You get backed. According to several industry whispers, the Sussexes have quietly rebuilt their financial scaffolding through strategic Hollywood allies. Power players who see them not as a royal liability, but as a global brand opportunity. Let's name some names being floated in PR circles. A-list philanthropy patrons like Oprah's Extended Circle, the same network that brokered their original post-royal interviews. Silicon Valley adjacent investors who love a redemption arc, especially one tied to mental health, tech, and women's empowerment platforms. And a few discreet media figures who specialize in high-profile rehabilitation stories, the same. People who turned scandal-ridden celebs into inspirational speakers and brand ambassadors. The funding isn't necessarily direct. It's more subtle than that. Think partnerships, advisory roles, donations to Archewell foundations, brand collaborations disguised as activism. Every move is tax-shielded, reputation polished, and completely deniable. Even Meghan's upcoming media projects, yes, there are a few brewing quietly, are said to have indirect studio connections. Not the old-school streaming platforms, but boutique production firms known for celebrity, documentaries, and soft-impact storytelling. Translation: glossy content that rebrands your image while pretending to just raise awareness. And here's the kicker. The Sussexes aren't just looking for money, they're looking for proximity. Proximity to power, proximity to influence, proximity to the conversation. They've positioned themselves right at the intersection of Hollywood activism and global branding. Meghan's alliances with fashion insiders, luxury wellness brands, and media consultants aren't accidental. They're strategic positioning. Each partnership adds another layer of legitimacy to the Sussex name, even if the core message remains, "We walked away from privilege." One PR insider put it bluntly, they're not trying to disappear. They're trying to evolve into the kind of celebrities who don't need the word royal to command power. That's the long game. By aligning with Hollywood's philanthropy elite, they're rewriting the narrative, from exiles to icons, from victims to visionaries. And the irony? The more they distance themselves from the monarchy, the more their royal aura becomes marketable. Every appearance, every camera flash, every surprise engagement carries that built-in mystique. The world's most famous couple who said no to the crown. That mystique has value. Massive value. It's why luxury brands still court Meghan. It's why global summits still invite Harry. It's not about what they say anymore. It's about what they represent. But make no mistake, all of this costs money. PR retainers, image consultants, event planners, brand strategists. They're burning through hundreds of thousands monthly just to look effortless. And while the public sees compassion and causes, behind the scenes it's all analytics dashboards, sentiment reports, and roundtables discussing how to make Meghan Markle palatable again. This is not a comeback born of humility. It's a reconstruction built in a boardroom. And just when people thought they were fading into obscurity, the Sussex machine started revving again. This time, fueled by people who understand that in Hollywood, redemption isn't about truth or legacy, it's about marketability. And here's the unsettling part. If the money's this organized and the strategy this airtight, it means there's another phase coming, because PR campaigns this polished always have one goal: the next reveal. And that reveal might be a lot closer than anyone expects. Now, this is where the story turns from PR strategy to psychological chess. Because if you think Meghan's connection to Diana is just coincidence, you're not paying attention. From the very beginning, Meghan's public identity was stitched to Diana's ghost. The media did it first. The commoner who married into royalty, the outsider who challenged the firm, the woman hounded by tabloids. But at some point, that narrative stopped being a comparison and became part of Meghan's branding weaponry. Let's rewind for a second. Back in 2019, when Meghan's British press battles hit their peak, her team began reshaping the story from royal rebellion to emotional inheritance. Meghan wasn't just a duchess anymore, she was a continuation. The same way Diana broke protocol to hug AIDS patients, Meghan was now speaking about race, women's rights, and mental health. Every cause Diana embodied in the 90s got a modern reboot through Meghan's lens. But here's where the strategy sharpens. Meghan didn't say she was the next Diana. She allowed the media to say it for her. Subtle quotes in interviews, emotional references to Harry's mother, wardrobe echoes, beige coats, off-shoulder gowns, the same Cartier tank watch, even camera angles during public appearances, the slow, compassionate glance, the hand-to-heart gesture, all eerily familiar to royal watchers. And then there's the Paris moment. Retracing Diana's last route wasn't just symbolic, it was cinematic. Meghan knew exactly what emotional buttons that would push. The world still mourns Diana as the ultimate people's princess, the woman who died escaping the press. So when Meghan stepped into that exact space in 2025, framed by flashbulbs and whispers, she wasn't just revisiting history, she was reclaiming it. That's the brilliance and the danger of her strategy. By aligning herself with Diana's emotional legacy, Meghan taps into something that transcends scandal. She becomes untouchable. Criticizing her starts to feel like criticizing Diana. Every narrative twist that used to trigger backlash now comes wrapped in sympathy. It's not just PR, it's mythology building. And Harry? He's the emotional glue holding the illusion together. The son of Diana, wounded, protective, constantly reminding the public of what the crown cost his mother. Every time he speaks about the pain of the past, it reactivates that emotional circuitry. Meghan's proximity to that story makes her the spiritual successor. Not because she asked for it, but because she learned how to use it. Now, let's talk about visuals, because visuals are everything in modern mythmaking. When Meghan appeared in Paris, her stylist didn't choose randomly. Muted white tones, the structured neckline Diana favored. Even her makeup, dewy, almost nostalgic, was a deliberate contrast to her California red carpet look. It wasn't about glamour. It was about grace. The message, I'm not here for fame. I'm here for legacy. But here's the twist. Diana's image was never hers to control. It was weaponized by the same institution she fought against. Meghan, however, learned from that. She's rewriting Diana's story on her own terms, with her own lens, using modern media tools that Diana never had. So what's the endgame here? Some insiders believe Meghan's ultimate plan is to position herself not as Harry's wife, but as a global feminine archetype. The kind of figure who can speak at the UN, front humanitarian campaigns, and lead multi-million-dollar initiatives, all under the banner of compassion, not controversy, and whether you love her or not, it's working. Every time the public sees Meghan framed against Diana's shadow, they don't think scandal, they think continuation. They think redemption, evolution, endurance. It's an image powerful enough to outlive tabloid cycles, and maybe even the royal brand itself. But make no mistake, this isn't nostalgia. It's strategy disguised as sentiment. Because for Meghan Markle, being the next Diana isn't about imitation, it's about inheritance. And if she controls the story, she controls the crown, even without wearing it. If you think Buckingham Palace is sitting quietly, sipping Earl Grey, and pretending not to notice Meghan's Paris takeover, think again. Behind those palace walls, things are not as composed as the public facade suggests. What looks like royal calm on the surface is actually quiet panic, the kind that only happens when control starts slipping, because for the first time since 1997, the narrative isn't theirs anymore. Let's start with what insiders are whispering. In the weeks after Meghan's Paris appearance, royal aides reportedly went into full containment mode. The comms team at the palace, the same department that handled Kate's surgery narrative and Charles's health PR, suddenly had a new file on their desk. Meghan, legacy management. That alone says it all. The fear that Meghan's image revival is triggering Diana déjà vu. And if history repeats itself, public sympathy will drift once again toward the outsider, not the institution. That's the royal family's worst nightmare. One royal insider reportedly described it like this: "It's the Diana problem all over again. Only this time, she's alive, strategic, and media savvy. The palace's first move has been narrative dilution." Notice how, right after Meghan's Paris buzz, multiple royal-friendly outlets started publishing stories about William and Kate's quiet strength, devotion to duty, and focus on family. That wasn't a coincidence. It was a counterbalance campaign. They're subtly redirecting the emotional energy away from Meghan, repositioning the Waleses as the stable, grounded contrast to the Hollywood drama. Then there's the selective engagement strategy. No direct comments on Meghan. No denials. No acknowledgement. The palace knows that silence in royal language is more powerful than rebuttal. By refusing to engage, they maintain their dignified distance. But behind the curtain, they're watching every metric. And they're not just monitoring tabloids, they're watching TikTok, YouTube, and sentiment dashboards. Yes, the monarchy has data analysts now. Every spike in Meghan's positive engagement sends quiet shockwaves through the palace press office. They've learned painfully that public loyalty doesn't belong to tradition anymore. It belongs to whoever controls the story, and Meghan, for the moment, does. The irony? The more the palace tries to ignore her, the more relevant she becomes. Every unacknowledged stunt or coincidental fashion echo feeds online speculation, fueling the exact media fire they're trying to suffocate. It's a royal PR paradox. Silence equals visibility. That's why some insiders are pushing for a new strategy. A subtle, modernized media offensive. We're talking influencer diplomacy, soft interviews, photo ops designed to humanize the firm. Think Kate in casual jeans at a children's charity, William speaking about mental health in relatable language. Every move aimed at reclaiming authenticity from the Sussex narrative. But here's the deeper concern: Harry's position. Behind closed doors, royal advisors are reportedly anxious about his next move. Because if Meghan's rebrand continues to gain traction, Harry might become her emotional amplifier again, consciously or not. His memoir already shook the institution. Another media moment, even a subtle one, could reignite a global empathy wave that paints the palace as cold and outdated. So what's the real royal response? Damage control through invisibility. They're minimizing Meghan's oxygen by controlling who gets quoted, which royal sources speak, and which journalists get access. Every leak, every sidebar story is intentional misdirection. They've even begun to quietly reframe Diana's legacy. Something that's sacred territory for the firm. More charity spotlights, more archival posts about her dedication to the crown. The goal? To reclaim Diana from Meghan's narrative orbit and remind the public that the original People's Princess belonged to the monarchy, not the movement. But here's the problem with trying to outshine a ghost to the public. Decides who glows, and if social sentiment keeps swinging Meghan's way, no amount of carefully staged photo ops will fix it. The palace's real panic isn't about one Paris event. It's about momentum, a growing sense that Meghan and Harry have learned how to weaponize public empathy better than the royals themselves. For the monarchy, that's existential danger. Because once the firm loses emotional control, it loses everything. And as one palace staffer allegedly muttered after seeing the Paris headlines, the worst part, she doesn't even need the crown to win. If there's one thing the British tabloids love more than a royal scandal, it's a royal comeback. And right now, Meghan and Harry are the gift that keeps their front pages fed. Every headline, every anonymous insider, every paparazzi shot, all of it fuels an endless content machine where outrage and sympathy sell in equal measure. But here's the twist most people miss. The press isn't picking a side. They're profiting from both. When Meghan stumbles, it's clicks. When she rises again, it's clicks plus moral redemption. The media learned long ago that polarization pays better than accuracy, so they've turned the Sussex saga into a soap opera that never ends. One week she's Hollywood Meghan, tone-deaf and demanding. The next she's the People's Princess 2.0. Same outlets, same writers. Just different adjectives depending on the trending mood. Here's how it works behind the curtain. Royal reporters, the so-called Royal Rota, have exclusive access to palace briefings. They get just enough official gossip to look authoritative, but not enough to burn bridges. So when the firm wants to leak a little anti-Meghan energy, it doesn't come from the palace press office. It comes from a trusted source close to the family. The tabloids publish it. Social media explodes, and the palace gets to say, "We don't comment on personal matters." Classic plausible deniability. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Meghan's PR circle has learned to play the same game, just glossier. Instead of tabloids, they feed celebrity trades and lifestyle outlets. Think Vanity Fair, The Cut, People, magazines that thrive on curated sympathy. These pieces are polished, emotional, and conveniently timed right before or after a major royal headline. The contrast isn't coincidence. It's choreography. Even Netflix and streaming press junkets have joined the ecosystem. Every time Harry or Meghan speak about trauma or life outside the institution, the clips get sliced, repackaged, and recirculated by the same UK tabloids that once trashed them. The outrage drives traffic. The traffic boosts its rates. Everyone cashes in. It's media capitalism disguised as moral commentary, and let's not forget social media. TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, these platforms have become mini press rooms of their own. On one side, royal traditionalists with Union Jack emojis. On the other, American stands defending Meghan like she's a pop icon. The algorithms don't care who's right. They just amplify conflict. The result? A perpetual feedback loop of gossip that keeps both the palace and the Sussexes trending, whether they like it or not. The truth is, both sides secretly need the press, and the press needs them even more. Without the monarchy, the tabloids lose their daily spectacle. Without coverage, the Sussexes lose their narrative oxygen. It's a toxic symbiosis, antagonistic in public, transactional in private. Look closely and you'll notice patterns. A flattering Meghan feature often drops right before a tough royal scandal. A sudden leak about Harry's strained relationship with William pops up whenever the palace needs to shift headlines away from internal trouble. It's a seesaw of distraction, and the media rides it expertly. One senior journalist once joked off record, "The monarchy's the longest-running reality show in the world. We're just the producers." They weren't wrong. The British press built Diana's legend, destroyed her peace, then mourned her death for decades of profit. Now, they're recycling that same formula with Meghan. Tragedy, backlash, redemption, except this time, it's monetized in real time through clicks, streams, and algorithmic drama, and if you think the coverage will ever stop, it won't. Because as long as the public keeps choosing sides, the headlines keep writing themselves. The tabloids aren't journalists in this story. They're ringmasters in a circus that never ends. But here's the irony. Every headline meant to break Meghan also keeps her relevant. Every royal source quote fuels another round of sympathy content across the ocean. The system feeds itself. Outrage begets defense. Defense begets more outrage. So while the palace frets about optics and Meghan polishes her next authentic interview, the only real winner in this feud is the one thing both sides claim to hate: the media machine, because in the end, they're not documenting history. They're manufacturing it. If there's one thing Meghan Markle understands better than most Hollywood veterans, it's the currency of sympathy. When you've been painted as a villain for half a decade, what's the ultimate power move? Make the world feel bad for you again, and that's exactly what this Paris spectacle achieved. Think about it. For months, the Sussex brand was flatlining. The Spotify deal was gone. Netflix was lukewarm. Public opinion, chilly. But one Paris stroll, one carefully timed gala appearance, and one coincidental walk through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. And suddenly, Meghan's not the scheming duchess. She's the woman who dared to retrace Diana's last steps, a grieving daughter-in-law, a mother, a misunderstood humanitarian. It's emotional alchemy, turning public resentment into renewed empathy. Behind the scenes, Meghan's team knew the optics would sting the palace and electrify the press. They didn't need Buckingham's approval. They just needed engagement. And boy, did they get it. Within 24 hours, the footage was everywhere. Slow-motion edits, sad piano tracks, TikToks comparing her walk to Diana's final paparazzi photos. Millions of views, millions of emotions reignited. This wasn't an accident. It was emotional engineering. Because when you control the narrative of your pain, you control the narrative. Period. Meghan's genius has always been her ability to weaponize vulnerability. From Oprah's "I just didn't want to be alive anymore" confession to that tearful podcast monologue about being seen, every emotional beat is carefully framed. She's not reacting to the press, she's reprogramming it, and let's be honest, it works. The modern audience loves a comeback. The same tabloids that called her a manipulative diva in 2020 are now calling her resilient and graceful under fire. Sympathy sells, redemption trends, and Meghan knows it. Every time she walks through a flashbulb storm, she's rewriting her Wikipedia entry in real time. It's PR judo, using your enemy's momentum to flip them on their back. And that's the master stroke. Meghan didn't just reclaim Diana's narrative. She monetized it. The Paris appearance wasn't just a public statement. It was a brand reactivation. Within days, Archewell's social engagement surged. New partnerships were quietly teased. Hollywood chatter reignited. Meghan went from unbookable to back on the circuit. And while the palace may have stayed silent, the industry noticed. Sympathy had turned into leverage. And leverage in Hollywood is gold. Because in a world where clicks are currency, the one who can make the audience feel, even if it's outrage, pity, or awe, always wins. And Meghan, she's cashing in. The tremors from Meghan's Paris performance didn't just rattle social media. They shook Buckingham Palace to its core. What looked like a simple gala appearance quickly morphed into a full-blown PR earthquake. And the royals? They were caught flat-footed. Behind those ornate palace gates, crisis mode quietly kicked in. Press secretaries scrambled. No comment memos circulated. And inside the communications office, one phrase reportedly echoed again and again. She's done it again. Because let's be honest, Meghan didn't just walk through Paris. She walked straight into the heart of the royal image machine and rewired it in real time. For decades, the monarchy's power has rested on one thing: control of the narrative. They've survived scandals, divorces, even death by managing perception. But now, they're up against someone who plays their game better than they do. Meghan didn't need palace resources, no royal press team, no official photographers. Just a few well-placed lenses, a perfectly lit shot, and a social media wildfire. Suddenly, every royal headline wasn't about Charles's health, Kate's recovery, or William's upcoming tour. It was about her. Meghan had hijacked the royal news cycle from an entirely different country, and that's the nightmare scenario for the firm. Because if Meghan can dominate global headlines without royal backing, what does that say about the monarchy's relevance in the influencer age? For a family that depends on mystique and controlled exposure, Meghan's brand of open access storytelling is chaos. The royal PR machine thrives on silence, Meghan thrives on spectacle, and spectacle wins the algorithm. Inside royal circles, aides reportedly urged restraint. "Don't dignify it," they said. But silence has a cost. The longer the palace said nothing, the louder Meghan's narrative grew. Fans spun theories. Media outlets filled the vacuum. And suddenly, the palace looked reactive instead of regal. This wasn't just a tabloid cycle. It was a strategic repositioning of power. In a digital world where perception is influence, Meghan effectively flipped the balance. She became the protagonist again, and the royals, her silent, stoic antagonists. And if you think that's exaggeration, look at the numbers. After the Paris footage dropped, global search interest for Meghan Markle spiked 400%. Mentions of Princess Diana Tunnel surged to their highest point in 5 years. Meanwhile, royal coverage about the King or Prince William plummeted by half. That's not coincidence. That's data confirming the shift. For the palace, this isn't just about optics, it's about control. The royal press system is built on quiet alliances with media outlets, but Meghan's team bypassed all that with one viral clip. She doesn't need the tabloids anymore. She uses them. And here's the chilling part. This could be just the beginning, because for every photo op, every charitable partnership, every unexpected paparazzi moment, there's a deeper message being coded in. Meghan's not just rebuilding her image, she's redefining what royal relevance means in the 21st century. Meanwhile, the palace faces a crossroads. Do they adapt, step into the digital battlefield and engage? Or do they cling to the old ways of discretion, hoping the storm passes? Either way, the damage is done. Meghan has proven that a duchess in exile can still outshine the crown, and in today's media economy, that's not a scandal. That's a revolution. If you ever needed proof that Meghan Markle is one of the most polarizing figures on the planet, just scroll through the comment section under that Paris footage. It's a war zone. Half sympathy, half savagery. On one side, you've got the devoted fans, the Meg Hive. They see her as a phoenix rising from the ashes of royal rejection. For them, that Paris moment wasn't calculated, it was cathartic. They post heart emojis, poetic captions, side-by-side edits of Diana and Meghan with captions like, "History doesn't repeat, it evolves." They frame it as strength, grace, and divine timing. To them, Meghan isn't just reclaiming her narrative. She's fulfilling Diana's unfinished story. They share clips of Meghan hugging young girls, photos of her wiping a tear during her UN speech, moments where she looks, just for a second, vulnerable. It's emotional fuel for a fandom that sees her as misunderstood, mistreated, and magnificently resilient. But the other half? They're not buying it. The skeptics call it PR necromancy, exploiting tragedy for attention. They accuse her of manipulating grief, weaponizing Diana's legacy, and staging a calculated photo op to claw back relevance. Their tone is cutting, merciless. She's acting again. Nothing is accidental. Even her sadness has lighting, and that's what makes Meghan such a rare phenomenon in modern celebrity culture. No one is neutral about her. You either love her or you loathe her. There's no middle ground, no apathy. Every public appearance becomes a referendum on her character. What's fascinating, though, is that Meghan thrives in that chaos. Because in today's algorithmic landscape, polarization isn't poison, it's power. Love or hate, people are talking. They're engaging, sharing, arguing, duetting. And every time her name trends, her brand breathes a little stronger. It's a psychological loop the internet can't escape. Think about it. People who despise Meghan can't stop posting about her. They dissect every expression, every outfit, every gesture. They amplify the very thing they want to destroy. Meanwhile, her supporters flood the same threads with defense, quotes, and receipts. What does that create? Endless engagement. It's the Kardashian effect, but weaponized with royal mythology, and it's not just online. Mainstream media feeds off that divide too. Outlets run double headlines, one praising her Paris grace, another slamming her calculated route. Both get clicks. Both feed the machine. The result? Meghan becomes a mirror. Everyone projects their own narrative onto her. To feminists, she's the symbol of defiance against archaic institutions. To royalists, she's the emblem of betrayal. To the press, she's the golden goose of controversy. And yet, the real genius lies in how she's learned to surf the wave rather than drown in it. Every backlash becomes a talking point. Every criticism, a counter-brand opportunity. She's figured out what so many celebrities never do. You don't need to change minds. You just need to own the conversation. That's why her brand isn't fragile anymore. It's anti-fragile. The more it's attacked, the more it grows. And maybe that's the ultimate twist in the Meghan Markle saga. She doesn't need universal love to win. She just needs attention, because in the economy of influence, obsession, even toxic obsession, is the most valuable currency of all. Here's the uncomfortable truth the palace would rather ignore. Meghan Markle doesn't need to be Diana to win. She just needs to reflect her. And that's exactly what she's been doing. Piece by piece, frame by frame, headline by headline. The Diana 2.0 myth isn't an accident. It's a slow burn strategy. One that's been quietly unfolding since 2017, when Meghan first stepped into the royal spotlight and the comparisons began. The compassionate smile, the soft-spoken interviews, the carefully chosen causes, the styling cues, cream coats, simple jewelry, that same signature tilt of the head during interviews. None of it is random, because Diana wasn't just a person, she was a symbol. a global archetype of grace, rebellion, and vulnerability wrapped into one. And Meghan's greatest PR genius is understanding how to resurrect that emotional language without ever saying her name. When the Paris footage surfaced, it wasn't the first time Meghan's image echoed Diana's. It was the culmination. Every visual parallel, from floral tributes to subtle outfit color matches, is part of a subconscious narrative. She's crafting a story that says, if Diana had survived, this is who she might have become. And the audience feels it, even if they don't say it. The timing couldn't be sharper either. The royal family's image has dimmed post-Queen Elizabeth, and public faith in the monarchy has wobbled. Meghan, on the other hand, represents something the royals no longer do: emotion, humanity, relatability. She cries on camera. She talks about mental health. She stumbles, admits flaws, and frames it all as part of her healing journey. It's the same emotional accessibility that made Diana irresistible to the masses and dangerous to the establishment. But make no mistake, this isn't coincidence. Meghan's brand architects studied Diana's playbook like a blueprint. They understood what made her loved wasn't obedience. It was authentic rebellion. The courage to defy the script while still appearing gentle and sincere. And that's why the Diana 2.0 myth sticks. It fulfills two fantasies at once. For fans, it's emotional justice. Diana reborn, wiser and stronger. For Meghan's team, it's a marketing goldmine. Instant emotional shorthand for compassion, glamour, and tragedy. Every time Meghan walks through a paparazzi frenzy, it's déjà vu for anyone old enough to remember Diana's flashbulb chases. Every time she gives a poised, tearful soundbite about being silenced, it triggers the world's collective memory of Diana's infamous, "There were 3 of us in this marriage" moment. And here's the kicker. The more the media points out these similarities, the more powerful they become. Because repetition builds myth, and myth builds immortality. It's the same psychological loop politicians and celebrities have used for decades. Familiarity breeds connection. The more people associate Meghan's image with Diana's, consciously or not, the stronger the emotional bond becomes. And it's not that Meghan is pretending to be Diana. It's that she's mastered how to frame herself in the same emotional light. It's empathy branding, where optics become emotion and emotion becomes loyalty. That's why even when Meghan's critics accuse her of copying, it doesn't hurt her. It helps her, because they're still saying Diana's name in the same breath. They're reinforcing the association she wants the world to make to the royal establishment. It's infuriating. To her PR team, it's genius. Because if Diana's ghost still haunts the monarchy, Meghan has learned how to make it work for her. And with every calculated appearance, every tearful soundbite, every polished yet unguarded look, she's not just reviving Diana's legacy, she's inheriting it. And the craziest part? The world's letting her. For over a century, the British monarchy has survived scandal after scandal with one simple weapon: silence. When the world screamed, the palace stayed still. When the press probed, they smiled politely and said nothing. That quiet, stoic mystique was their shield, the invisible barrier that kept the firm above the chaos. Until Meghan Markle came along and ripped the curtain right open. What the royals didn't anticipate was that Meghan wouldn't play by their ancient PR rulebook. She wasn't going to smile through whispers or stay silent through slander. She fought back, publicly, emotionally, and relentlessly. And in doing so, she exposed something the monarchy never wanted the world to see: that their silence isn't strength anymore. It's weakness, because in the digital era, silence doesn't protect you. It lets someone else tell your story first, and Meghan told it loudly. From the Oprah interview to the Netflix docuseries, she dismantled the royal PR illusion, showing viewers that the perfect royal family wasn't so perfect behind palace walls. Suddenly, the monarchy looked less like a symbol of tradition and more like a cold, outdated corporation built on hierarchy and control. For the first time, the royal PR machine looked clumsy. The palace couldn't counter Meghan's modern strategy, storytelling through emotion. While their statements sounded sterile and rehearsed, Meghan's soundbites were human, raw, and painfully relatable. The monarchy communicated through press releases, Meghan communicated through tears. And in today's world, emotion beats etiquette every single time. The royal family's image relied on mystique. Meghan's relied on authenticity. But authenticity is addictive. It spreads fast, it feels real, and it connects. And when Diana's spirit is the emotional benchmark, the Windsors simply can't compete. Even inside the palace, sources say there's been quiet panic over how to adapt. William and Kate's team have reportedly pushed for more modern appearances, softer interviews, warmer optics, more casual moments, all in a bid to appear less robotic and more relatable. But there's one problem. They can't do it like Meghan can, because relatability can't be rehearsed. Every attempt to modernize ends up feeling like a royal simulation of authenticity. While Meghan does it naturally, with a Hollywood-trained understanding of how to look genuine, even under fire, it's no wonder the institution feels threatened. Meghan didn't just leave the monarchy, she out-evolved it. And that's the monarchy's true weak spot. For centuries, their brand was built on distance. Meghan's brand is built on connection. And in an age where connection is currency, that's checkmate. The fallout is already visible. Younger audiences are drifting. Gen Z doesn't romanticize the crown. They see an outdated brand struggling to stay relevant while a former duchess outpaces them on social media. Meghan turned vulnerability into power. The monarchy turned silence into confusion. And worst of all, they can't publicly fight her without proving her right. That's the brilliance of Meghan's positioning. Every time the palace issues a denial, it fuels her narrative. Every time they say nothing, it looks like guilt. They're trapped in the PR paradox she built for them. It's a battle between an institution and an individual. And somehow, the individual is winning, because in this new media landscape, charisma, storytelling, and vulnerability beat lineage and tradition every day of the week, and the woman, who was once branded as a royal outsider, has become the monarchy's biggest modern-day mirror, reflecting everything they've refused to evolve into. Let's be honest, this was never just about survival. It's about legacy. While the palace clings to its centuries-old script, Meghan and Harry have been quietly writing their own, one built not on titles, but on timing. They know the monarchy is playing defense. They're playing the long game, because unlike the Windsors, the Sussexes don't answer to protocol, parliament, or a press secretary locked in tradition. They answer to momentum. And momentum is everything. You can see it in how they've rebuilt their public life. Not through royal pomp, but through cultural relevance. Archewell, their foundation, isn't just about charity. It's a platform ecosystem. Documentaries, podcasts, public appearances, all orbiting around one simple goal: to stay in the global conversation without needing the crown to do it. That's their strategy. Perpetual presence. Every project is part of a long-term narrative. Harry, the son who escaped the machine that broke his mother. Meghan, the woman who challenged a centuries-old institution and lived to tell the tale. Together, they've rebranded royal exile into royal evolution. And it's working. Slowly, subtly, brilliantly. Even the pacing of their moves tells the story. Notice how they alternate visibility. Meghan steps back while Harry promotes Spare. Then Harry retreats while Meghan makes her Paris appearance. It's tag team PR, never overexposing, never vanishing. Just enough to stay relevant, to keep the public guessing, because the Sussexes have realized something the monarchy hasn't. Attention is a renewable resource, as long as you know when to pull back. And when they do appear, it's never random. Every sighting, every partnership, every casual photo drop is strategically placed. Meghan walking through Diana's tunnel wasn't spontaneous. It was symbolic marketing. Harry's PTSD revelations? Pain packaged as purpose. Their projects are narrative architecture. Trauma, redemption, triumph, cycling endlessly to sustain empathy and intrigue. This isn't chaos. It's choreography. The couple has also surrounded themselves with the kind of Hollywood power brokers who think in arcs, not headlines. Meghan's agency ties, their Netflix alliances, their whispers of new ventures, they're not chasing the moment. They're building one. Something that lasts long after the royal press cycle moves on. And the palace can't compete with that. Because it's playing a different game. A reactive one. While the monarchy waits for the next jubilee or coronation to stay relevant, Meghan and Harry are creating content. Modern myth-making. They've turned their lives into serialized storytelling. Love, betrayal, exile, healing. And the world is binge-watching. Even their critics fuel the plan. Every hate tweet, every op-ed, every "who do they think they are?" Peace only extends their visibility. Controversy is their oxygen. And the more people argue about their motives, the longer they stay in the algorithm. The Sussexes aren't trying to destroy the monarchy, they're simply outpacing it. Harry's memoir didn't end the crown. It froze its image in amber. Meghan's reemergence didn't challenge its existence. It reminded everyone who the real emotional heart of Diana's legacy is. And here's the part most people miss. They're not aiming for the throne. They're building something bigger, a dynasty of their own. A global brand rooted in empathy, celebrity, and cultural influence. The crown can't be exported, but their story can. That's why Meghan's return to the spotlight feels less like a comeback and more like a checkpoint. The Paris footage, the quiet media plays, the whispers of new deals, they're setting the stage for Act 2, because the Sussex story isn't over. It's evolving away from royalty toward relevance, away from titles toward timelessness, and in the end, that's the long game. Not to rule the kingdom, but to outlast it, because history doesn't remember who kept the crown polished. It remembers who changed what it meant. Paris wasn't a finale, it was a reset. A quiet but powerful declaration that Meghan and Harry are stepping into their next era, one where they don't need royal titles, palace approval, or even public sympathy to stay relevant. They've mastered something far more potent, narrative control. Because make no mistake, what we saw in Paris wasn't just another headline grab. It was a strategic soft launch, a signal to the industry, the media, and the audience that the Sussex brand has evolved. Sleeker, subtler, and more self-aware. The chaos of the early years? Gone. What's coming next is calculated equilibrium. Behind closed doors, sources say Meghan's team has been rethinking her public identity from the ground up. Less royal rebel, more global visionary. Expect fewer tear-filled interviews and more spotlight on leadership, innovation, and influence. Think Meghan Markle, the movement, not Meghan Markle, the victim. Her next act isn't about defending her image. It's about monetizing her narrative on her terms. Industry insiders have whispered about high-level rebranding discussions, a potential lifestyle venture, a return to media, maybe even a pivot into global philanthropy with corporate partnerships. If that sounds familiar, it's because she's following the same long-form trajectory as women like Oprah, Gwyneth, and even Angelina Jolie, all of whom turned pain and controversy into lasting cultural capital. And Meghan's advantage? She's already polarizing enough to stay interesting forever. Harry's role, meanwhile, is evolving too. The raw vulnerability of Spare positioned him as the emotional anchor of their brand. Now, he's reportedly focusing on legacy work, mental health advocacy, veteran initiatives, environmental campaigns, all while keeping a foot in the documentary space. He's not the rebellious prince anymore. He's the reflective survivor. Together, their next chapter looks less like an ongoing feud and more like a calculated redefinition of fame itself. They're reshaping what it means to be royal in the age of content, not by maintaining mystery, but by mastering transparency. And that's the irony the monarchy still hasn't grasped. The Sussexes' openness, even when messy, is their shield. Their ability to overshare is what makes them unbreakable. The world knows too much to fully turn against them, and too little to ever stop watching. In PR circles, Meghan's comeback is being studied as a case in strategic reemergence. Her Paris optics rebalance the narrative. Dignified, emotional, symbolic. Not defensive, not desperate. It reminded the world that she can still command attention without saying a word. From here, expect the Sussexes to move toward a slower, more deliberate rhythm. Carefully timed public appearances. Selective media moments. Controlled vulnerability, enough to stir intrigue, but not chaos. They've learned the hard way that silence doesn't protect them, but scarcity does. And there's buzz of a broader media push in 2026, a new documentary project, maybe a book, possibly even Meghan's long-rumored return to creative production, this time not as talent, but as a power player behind the scenes. Because Meghan's always known the ultimate truth about fame. You can't outfight the machine, but you can learn to run it. Paris proved she still knows how to set the internet on fire. What comes next will show if she can keep it burning, without getting burned herself. The Sussex brand 2.0 won't scream for attention. It'll command it. Every photo, every soundbite, every headline will serve a purpose. The royal drama may fade, but the cultural footprint they've built? That's here to stay. Because at this point, the Sussexes aren't trying to return to the throne. They're building their own kind of crown. One made of influence, visibility, and endurance. And as the palace quietly polishes its tiaras, Meghan and Harry are doing something far more dangerous. They're building an empire that can't be dethroned. What happened in Paris wasn't just another red carpet comeback. It was the blueprint for modern reinvention. Meghan and Harry didn't simply step into the spotlight. They rewrote how public sympathy, brand equity, and digital power collide. Every camera flash, every curated angle, every headline afterward, all part of a meticulously designed PR symphony. Meghan's message was clear. You can try to erase me, but I'll just evolve. That's not rebellion, that's strategy. This is the Meghan Effect 2.0, the transformation from royal scandal to celebrity sovereignty. She's no longer bound by titles, palaces, or protocol. Meghan's currency now is attention, her crown is influence, and her throne is the global media itself. In an era where image is empire, Meghan Markle may have quietly cracked the code, using empathy, outrage, and mystery as her power tools. And whether you love her or loathe her, you can't look away. Outro. The end of the fairy tale. The royal story used to end with a wedding, a wave, and a castle. But for Meghan Markle, that's where hers began. The real power move wasn't marrying into the monarchy, it was walking away from it and making the world follow. Because in 2025, royalty doesn't wear crowns, they trend.